was very good, and the evening and morning were the sixth day. Thus the heavens and earth were finished, and all the host of them. On the seventh day, God ended the work in which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth, when they were created, in the day the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb in the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. That's interesting. I thought back in Genesis 1 he made man and woman. Let me go back and see. 1:27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him. Male and female created he them. All right. Maybe it got mixed up. Okay. But they went up amiss from the earth.
Hold on, I'm sorry. He created man and woman at the same time there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because later on he created.
Well, we're going to see what happens here. I'm just reading the Bible now. But they went up from mist from the earth and wore the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed in his nostril the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Okay. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put a man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every fruit tree, every tree that was pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the river went out of Eden to water the garden, and thence it was parted and became into four heads. And the name of the first is Pison, that which encompassed the whole land of Halavach, there where there is gold. And the gold of the land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon, and the same is in that encompasses the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third is Hiddefkel, that which is the goeth east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And the Lord God took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to dress and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for the day that thou eatest thou shalt surely die. Well, now we got another problem. In Genesis 1, God made man and woman together, and he told them they did everything. In Genesis 2, apparently he made man again, and they said you can eat everything except that one tree in the middle there, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a help meet for him. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. Okay. And Adam gave the name to all cattle and all fowl of the air, every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him. So he still didn't have a helpmeet in verse 20, even though the Lord said he's going to make him one in verse 18. Okay. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her to the man. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return to the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Who gave the animals their name?
Adam.
Who gave Eve her name?
Adam.
So he named her the same way he named the cows, the pigs, and the dogs. Okay. She didn't choose her own name. One time, okay. And God didn't name her.
Definitely wasn't black.
Okay. Under Adam also, his wife, the Lord God made coats of skins and clothed them. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand, did I leave out a verse? No, the number right. And take of the tree of, lest he put forth his hand and take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. Excuse me 1 second. No, you see, my problem is, now the serpent doesn't come into verse 3, to Genesis 3. That's why I hadn't read it in a while, I forgot how confusing it was. Okay. And the Lord God said, behold, the man has become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So now he didn't put him out. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, and man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Okay, they were both naked in verse 25. I thought back in verse, one of the earlier verses, he gave him some clothes.
Now, in 19, the verse, and that was after
21st book in skin.
they committed to sin. 19 should have been.
Yeah, verse 21. He clothed, so God clothed them in verse 21, but they still naked in verse 25. Okay. Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more subtle than any of the beasts of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye shall eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and yea, ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and also gave unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed together fig leaves together, and they made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord amongst the trees of the garden. And the Lord God called unto Adam and said unto him, where art thou? And he said, I heard the voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked and hid myself. And he said, against this he is God, who told thee thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I command thee thou should not eat? And the man said, the woman gave it to me. She gave it to the tree, and I ate. And the Lord God said unto the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. So man said, the woman did it. Eve said, the serpent did it. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all the cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and thus shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I'll put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and the seed it shall be, and between her seed it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his head. Heel. And unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband. He shall rule over them. And to Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, thou hast eaten of the tree of which I command thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. So he drove out the man, and he placed in the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned in every way to keep the way of the tree of life. First of all, I now know after I read that why they read the New Testament most of the time. Why they read the New Testament most of the time. That's a terrible story. That's a terrible story. Does anybody know why the story seems to go backwards and forth several times?
Because they had several different writers, right?
Yeah. There were several different writers. The different writers represented different schools of thought in Israel and Judea, what made the state of Israel. And being typically African people, they didn't fight over which version was right. They put them both in there. So you have one creation in Genesis 1. You've got an entirely different creation in Genesis 2. Then you got amalgamation, best way you could do it, in Genesis 3. Now, Preacher Jones never told me that. So I didn't read just as much because this was confusing. Now, there's some other things in here too also. You know, in terms of mythology, when the Europeans had to choose a new mythology to replace the one they had, the mythology they had before they picked up the New Testament, the Old Testament, was trolls under the bridge and giants in the sky. Things we call fairy tales today. That was early European religion. When they found that could not stand up against other world religions, they adopted the story of Hebrew. They adopted the Hebrew story because it had elements in it that they liked. One thing they liked was the command structure. God, man, woman, children. Everybody dominating somebody. They liked the fact that it put man in charge of woman. Because according to the story, God made the animals and brought them to Adam. He gave him a name. God made the woman, brought her to Adam. He gave her a name. I guess he probably named her a little bit more respectfully than the pig. Still the same process. Obviously, he was the one in charge. Right today, tomorrow, in churches all through this country, there'll be black women and white women who very proudly say that they got to be subservient to their husbands. Because what the Bible say. Husband may be drunk, cracked out, and stupid, but they still trying to follow him. Rather give him some guidance. Because what the Bible say. The Bible say. I used to hear all of them like young like the Bible say. The Bible say.
Still telling the truth that woman was first. Woman was first.
Yeah.
That's woman.
Yeah.
Anything produced is female.
Yeah. But that's the story they adopted. Now, there's another element of the story they liked very, very much. Think about this. God makes every tree, including the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right and wrong. He tells them you can eat of every tree except that one tree. If you cannot eat of the tree of the knowledge of right and wrong, what are you?
Then you're not human. I mean, well, put it, you're not.
You're dependent.
You're just instinct.
You're dependent.
Right.
If you don't know right from wrong, you gotta ask. You cannot be independent. So that story has in it the basis of dependence. Listen to authority and not being able to decide for yourself. If you know right from wrong, you can decide for yourself. In the Egyptian story, they knew right from wrong. They were taught righteousness, truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, reciprocity, and order. There's a book called The Book of Coming Forth by Night and by Day that told you how to walk by night and by day, how to conduct yourself. You were expected to be self-motivated to know right and to do right, brother. Pass the microphone back.
While you were speaking, I thought about the concept that Ty brings in so many black men, and that is the promise keepers. And the promise keepers uses what you just spoke of, in that the woman is to answer to the man, and also the man answers to a group. So anything that you do has to be sanctioned by that group. But the main point they make is that you go home and the woman answers to you, which I think works against us strongly as a people. And it's a group that in the mainstream press, they kind of give you an impression that it has gone away, but it's not. It's very much alive. And they're still meeting in football stadiums, and many men turn out for this. So I just bring it up because I think it's a real problem within the black community.
European community still, now the black community can work real difficult now because things are now structured in society where many black women have advanced degrees, more so than men, and now they're making more money than the men. And it's real hard to be taking orders from somebody when you're paying all the bills and you got most of the education.
And someone will come across a couple of books called When God Was a Woman.
Yes.
And Great Black Mother.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. So now let's do a quick synopsis of this. So now, in this story, the originator God is represented throughout the Old Testament as an individual. He never made nobody else do anything with him. Now, the New Testament kind of intimates that Jesus was there somewhere. But there's not a single word spoken about Jesus or anybody else helping God anywhere in the Old Testament. To quote the old James Franklin, James Cleveland gospel song, he's God all by himself. He don't need nobody else. Okay? In the story and the characters in the story are seen as literal, actual people and entities. Adam is a man. Eve is a single woman. They don't represent anything other than two people. And God is a person, a big person, a supersized person, but a person. No character, gods nor men in the Old Testament takes any responsibility for any of his actions. And when you think about it, what is the most European church on the planet? The Catholic Church. The Catholic Church takes the whole process of accepting no responsibility to the highest level. Let's say this week I committed 5 sins. What do I do to get them off me? I go to confession. I say 3 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers, buy 4 candles, pay some money, I'm wiped clean. Let's say I get hit by a car. I'm dead in the street. What process do they have to get sin off me before I go to heaven? The priest can come give me last unction. He can purify me anything I did before I died. No responsibility. So you have the image now in the Western society, which is a heavenly European Christian society, you know, that somewhere up in heaven, St. Peter got a book of life. And he gonna open that book one day and he gonna read that book. And he gonna see what you did back in 1985, back in the back of that restaurant in the dark. And you scared to death of what he gonna read. And what you gonna say when he confronts you is the same thing Eve said. The devil made me do it. I had nothing to do with it. That's the image you see in the cartoons, with man with the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other shoulder, and they both shouting instructions. And he's totally confused. He has no basis to make up any decision himself because he doesn't know right from wrong. And see, if you don't know right from wrong, then you got a halfway good excuse because you didn't know what was right or wrong. In the Egyptian conceptualization, you can't say the devil made me do it because you knew right from wrong in the first place. And you knew, number two, that because you knew right, you had the responsibility to do right. Responsibility is the response to the ability to do right. Okay?
I think the Egyptian concept, in other words, is that I'll bring the picture in, it's where they had a feather and then they had a something like
It's the way. It's the seeing of the weighing of the soul of Ani.
Yeah.
Ani has died. He goes before the pantheon of all the